You don't belong here. I don't serve people like you." The words landed like a slap in a silent room. They came sharp, clipped, deliberate from the woman behind the counter, her blazer pressed to perfection, her posture rigid as marble. She didn't whisper. She wanted the entire floor to hear. Across from her stood a young black woman in a plain hoodie, cap pulled low, hands resting lightly on the counter. She didn't flinch. She didn't even blink. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead, cold and merciless, as if they agreed with the insult. A keyboard clattered somewhere in the back, a printer whirred. But the weight of those 9 words drowned everything else. The bank lobby was sleek, modern glass and steel, the kind of place where silence felt expensive. Men in tailored suits hunched over laptops, women in heels tapped through emails. No one looked up at first, but energy travels fast. And this one sentence was enough to turn air into static. She stayed still. That stillness was not weakness, it was coiled power. Anyone paying attention could feel it. But most didn't. Most saw only a hoodie and a cap. Before we continue, where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. And if you believe in dignity and justice, hit like and subscribe. These stories spark change. And we're glad you're here. Now, back to her. Her name, for now, didn't matter. What mattered was the line drawn across the desk. Who belongs and who does not. The clerk's eyes darted briefly toward a colleague 2 seats down, almost as if seeking approval. A nod came back, subtle but clear. Yes, dismiss her. Yes, erase her. The woman in the hoodie leaned slightly closer, calm, even voice. I asked for assistance. That's all. The clerk smirked. And I said not for people like you. It wasn't about policy. It wasn't about procedure. It was about perception, sharpened into a weapon. Around them, the air tightened, like a courtroom waiting for a verdict. She could have argued. She could have raised her voice. Instead, she folded her arms. Silence. Eyes steady, not on the clerk, but on the space behind her as if she already saw the ending. A man in a gray suit 2 desks away finally looked up. He frowned, hesitated, then slipped his phone from his pocket. The red light of a camera blinked alive. A witness. The first ripple. The clerk noticed, straightened, and hissed through her teeth. Security's on standby. The woman in the hoodie exhaled, slow and steady. Her silence was louder than any protest. Because silence in that moment wasn't surrender. It was a countdown. And every person in that lobby was about to hear it ring. Her name was Maya Jordan, but in that lobby, she was just another woman in a hoodie, waiting for help. She had chosen it carefully that morning. Plain beige sweatshirt, cap pulled low, no jewelry except a small watch with a scratched face. Her sneakers weren't new, her jeans weren't pressed. To most eyes, she looked ordinary, maybe even out of place, and that was the point. For 20 years, Maya had watched doors close for people who looked like her. She had seen the way eyes flicked up and down, measuring worth in fabrics and logos. She had been denied apartments, turned down loans, and once, at 25, told flatly by a mortgage officer that someone like you is high risk. She never forgot the sting, or the smile that came with it. Now, in her late 30s, she carried billions under her signature. But she walked into this branch alone, without entourage, without the symbols people mistake for power, because this was not an accident. It was a test. The lobby lights buzzed overhead, white and sharp. A digital screen displayed scrolling stock tickers, glowing green and red like a pulse. Clients tapped their cards, signed forms, moved about unaware that the woman waiting in silence could have signed their paychecks. Her purpose was simple, a routine verification, a withdrawal to check compliance. Nothing extravagant, but compliance wasn't what was on display now. Prejudice was. The clerk leaned back in her chair, still eyeing Maya like she'd wandered into the wrong theater. Her colleagues pretended to work, but their shoulders angled toward the scene, curiosity disguised as productivity. Maya set a slim folder on the counter. Inside were documents crisp and indisputable. Titles, records, assets. She slid it forward with 2 fingers. Run my name, she said again, voice calm, even. The clerk didn't touch the folder. We don't process walk-ins at this level. A pause. Maya breathed, steady. She'd been here before, different cities, different desks, same verdict. Ordinary wasn't allowed to hold extraordinary, not in their eyes. A woman seated in the waiting area frowned. She was young, maybe mid-20s, clutching a tablet. She tilted her camera slightly, recording. Her lips parted as if to say something, but closed again. The hesitation was familiar. Witnesses often froze before truth became undeniable. Maya didn't look at the lens. She didn't need footage. She needed the room to hear itself. Inside her chest, the rhythm was not rage, but discipline. Her father once told her, "Patience doesn't mean you wait. It means you prepare." That sentence lived inside her like armor, and now it was the reason she stood so still, so quiet, even as another insult coiled in the air, ready to strike. The clerk tapped her keyboard slowly, theatrically. "You can't possibly expect access with this attire." Verification denied. Her words fell into the silence like nails into wood, a verdict without trial. Maya's eyes flicked, just once, to the young woman holding her tablet. A silent message passed. "Speak if you must, watch if you dare, but know the truth is coming." And with that, she folded her hands, unshaken. The countdown had only just begun. The folder still sat unopened on the counter. The clerk tapped her nails against it, sharp little clicks like a metronome for humiliation. Then she leaned forward, voice just loud enough for nearby clients to hear. "You know what this looks like?" she said, lips curling. "It looks like a fraud attempt. Hoodie, no appointment, asking for access at this level? I should call security." Her colleague 2 desks down chuckled under his breath, shaking his head as if the outcome was obvious. Another teller glanced up, frowned, then quickly looked away. The silent verdict was spreading. "She doesn't belong." Maya stayed still. That stillness unnerved them more than shouting would have. "Excuse me," the clerk called over her shoulder. "Manager to the front, please." Her tone was theatrical, dripping with false urgency, like an actress playing to the back row of a theater. Heads turned across the lobby. A low murmur started. A tall man in a gray suit emerged from the glass office near the back. Mid-40s, hair slicked, tie knotted too tight. His nameplate gleamed, "Branch Manager, Eric Dalton." He walked with the stride of someone used to being obeyed. "What's the problem?" Eric asked, already scanning Maya from sneakers to cap, his eyes narrowing as if the sight confirmed his suspicion. The clerk gestured at the folder. "Unverified client, insisting on priority access." Eric didn't open the folder either. He folded his arms. "This section isn't for walk-ins, it's for real clients." Real. The word cracked through the lobby like a whip. Maya's jaw stayed loose, her eyes calm. "Run my name," she repeated softly. Eric smirked, dismissive. "That's not how it works. You don't just stroll in here dressed like this." He gestured vaguely at her hoodie, like fabric itself was proof of guilt. "If you need check cashing or prepaid services, the main floor can assist you." A few clients exchanged glances. One raised an eyebrow, whispering to his companion. Another, a young man by the coffee station, pulled out his phone and hit record. The atmosphere had shifted. What began as private dismissal was now becoming public theater. The clerk folded her arms, triumphant. "Should I call security now?" Eric nodded slowly, eyes never leaving Maya. "Stand by. Let's not waste any more time." The murmur grew louder. A middle-aged woman in pearls whispered, "What's happening?" A man in a suit muttered, "Looks like fraud." Maya didn't raise her voice. She didn't defend herself. She simply leaned back against the counter, hands folded, gaze steady, her silence pressed on them like weight. Eric stepped closer, lowering his voice though the whole lobby could still hear. "Listen carefully. This is not a place for people who walk off the street thinking they're entitled. You're done here. Leave before I make you." A chill spread through the air. The insult wasn't hidden anymore. It was declaration, open and raw. The young woman with the tablet finally whispered, almost to herself but caught on camera, "This feels wrong." And Maya, hearing it, closed her eyes for just a breath, because she knew this was only the beginning of their mistake. The countdown ticked louder. The room waited for her to crack. Eric's words still hung in the air, sharp as glass. "Leave before I make you." The clerk smirked behind him. Certain victory was near. But Maya didn't move. She inhaled slowly, almost imperceptibly. Her hands rested on the counter, fingers interlaced like folded steel. The silence stretched long enough to unsettle even the onlookers. A cough came from somewhere in the lobby. A printer hummed and spat out a form. The rhythm of the bank returned, but the atmosphere had shifted. It wasn't business as usual anymore. It was a trial, and Maya was the defendant who refused to speak. Eric leaned forward. "Did you hear me?" Maya lifted her gaze, steady and unblinking. Her voice was calm, quiet enough that some had to lean closer. "Run my name." The clerk scoffed. She thinks she's clever. Eric straightened, smirk never fading. No record, no service. It's simple. Maya tilted her head slightly, as if examining him, not his words. In that stillness, the room felt heavy, because silence isn't absence. Silence can be strategy, and her silence now was louder than their accusations. At 22, she remembered sitting across from a banker who told her she couldn't open an account without a cosigner even though she had the funds. She had smiled then, too. That same smile lived at the corners of her mouth now. Patient, unreadable. The young woman with the tablet lowered it briefly, whispering to the man beside her, "She's not even angry. Why not?" The man shrugged, uncertain, but his eyes stayed fixed on Maya. Eric tapped the counter with impatience. "Security will be here any moment. You could save yourself embarrassment if you leave quietly." Maya blinked once. "Embarrassment isn't mine to carry." The words landed soft, but they cut like a blade. A few heads turned. A man near the coffee machine muttered, "Damn." The clerk rolled her eyes. "Philosophy won't save you. Policy will." Maya's lips curved into the faintest smile. "Policy without integrity is theater, and you're putting on quite a show." Gasps echoed softly from the seats. Someone stifled a laugh. Eric's jaw tightened. For a moment, no one spoke. The weight of her composure filled the space where panic was expected. She didn't beg. She didn't argue. She simply existed with such stillness it rattled the walls of certainty around them. And in that stillness, a storm was forming, quiet, patient, inevitable. The countdown ticked lower. The lobby had gone heavy with silence, but silence never lasts. It broke first with a soft electronic chime, the sound of a phone camera clicking on. In the far corner, a young man in a navy blazer raised his phone, red light glowing against polished glass. His name was Daniel Cruz, 28, a fintech entrepreneur who knew bias when he saw it. He angled the camera carefully, capturing Maya at the counter, Eric looming above her, the clerk crossing her arms like a gatekeeper. Eric noticed. His voice snapped like a whip. "Sir, put that phone away. No recordings inside the branch." Daniel didn't flinch. "If there's nothing wrong happening, why are you afraid of cameras?" Murmurs rippled. Two clients glanced at each other, one raising an eyebrow, the other whispering, "He's right." The clerk's face flushed. "This is private banking business. Unauthorized filming will result in removal." Maya turned slightly, her gaze resting on Daniel. For the first time, she spoke to someone other than the staff. "No," she said, her tone calm but firm. "We don't need footage. We need words. Speak if you see something." Daniel hesitated. Then his voice steadied. "I see discrimination. Plain and simple." The words echoed louder than any recording could. From the waiting area, a woman clutching her purse leaned forward. "He's right. She gave her documents. They didn't even check them." Eric's jaw tightened. "Enough. Stay out of this, both of you." But the current had shifted. Witnesses weren't silent anymore. The young woman with the tablet who had been recording quietly now spoke up, her voice cracking but clear. "She has a right to service. You're treating her like she's invisible." The clerk hissed. "Watch yourself, miss, or you'll be asked to leave too." But the tablet was already raised higher, capturing the scene. "Then the whole world will see," she shot back. Gasps fluttered. A man in a dark suit near the espresso bar muttered, "This is going viral." Maya exhaled slowly. She didn't smile, but her stillness seemed to grow taller. She looked at the young woman and Daniel both. "Truth doesn't need editing," she said quietly. "Let them hear it." Eric's voice grew harsher, louder, hoping to reassert control. "Security! Now!" But the moment he barked the order, the atmosphere shifted again, because the room wasn't just watching anymore. The room was judging. One client whispered, "Unbelievable." Another said aloud, "She's calmer than all of them, and they're the ones acting unprofessional." The current of opinion was turning, and once it turned, there was no dam strong enough to stop it. Maya folded her hands on the counter again, gaze steady as steel. The storm outside her body was growing, but inside, she was anchored. The countdown ticked lower still. The air in the lobby had thickened, every second stretching longer than the last. Daniel's voice still lingered. "I see discrimination, plain and simple." But Eric Dalton wasn't rattled. He leaned into the performance. "Let me make this clear for everyone watching," Eric announced, voice rising so even the furthest client could hear. "This woman is not verified. She has no business here. She is wasting our time." The clerk nodded eagerly, arms crossed like she'd won. "Exactly. She's a fraud." Gasps rippled. The young woman with the tablet shook her head. You didn't even look at her documents. Eric turned sharply toward her. And you are not a decision-maker here. Sit down, or I'll have you escorted out as well. The tension snapped tighter, phones angled higher. No one was sitting down now. Maya remained still, anchored as if rooted to the marble floor. Her voice was quiet, almost measured against the storm. All I asked was to run my name. Eric sneered. And I told you this isn't a walk-in center. This is a private client branch. You don't belong here. The words hit harder than the insult itself. You don't belong here. A verdict, a sentence, a door slammed shut, in plain view of everyone. From the espresso bar, an older man in a pinstripe suit muttered, "That's excessive." A younger client beside him whispered, "It's obvious what this is about." The clerk slammed a hand against the counter for emphasis. "Security!" she called again. "Remove her before this escalates further." But the irony was lost on no one. The escalation wasn't Maya's, it was theirs. Daniel stepped closer, lowering his phone slightly but not his voice. "You're humiliating her in public. This is going to backfire." Eric glared at him. "Stay out of this, or your accounts may face review as well." A collective gasp broke. Threats weren't subtle anymore, they were blatant. Maya didn't move. Her breathing stayed steady, shoulders squared, gaze calm. "Every word you speak," she said quietly, "says more about you than me." The clerk rolled her eyes. "Oh, please. Enough with the riddles. People like you walk in, think you can play rich." She didn't finish. The weight of her words lingered anyway. "People like you." The phrase clanged across the lobby like a bell no one could unhear. Clients shifted uncomfortably in their seats. A mother pulled her daughter closer. Even those who hadn't spoken yet wore the look of silent judgment, but not against Maya. Against them. Eric raised his hand as if delivering a sentence. "Remove her now. She has no rights here." The young woman with the tablet stood abruptly. Her voice cracked but carried through the lobby. "She has more dignity than this entire branch combined." The silence that followed was electric. And in the center of it, Maya stayed still, her composure drawing the eyes of everyone present. Because they expected outrage. What they got instead was patience, patience that felt like a warning. The countdown ticked closer to 0. The air snapped. Eric's words still echoed. "She has no rights here." But the next move wasn't his voice. It was his hand. With a sudden jerk, he grabbed the folder Maya had placed so carefully on the counter, the edges bent beneath his grip. He didn't open it, didn't glance at a single page. Instead, with theatrical precision, he tore it down the middle. Paper ripped loud and jagged, slicing through the silence like thunder. Gasps erupted. A woman near the coffee station clapped a hand over her mouth. Someone muttered, "He didn't just, but he had." The clerk smiled with satisfaction. "That ends that. Fraud confirmed." Daniel's phone trembled in his hand, the red light still glowing. "Did you just destroy her documents?" "That's evidence." Eric tossed the torn halves onto the counter as if discarding trash. "She had no valid paperwork. I prevented a scam. You're welcome." Maya didn't flinch, not even when fragments of her own records fluttered to the marble floor. She simply watched the papers settle, her face unreadable, her stillness deafening. The young woman with the tablet stood again. "That's illegal!" she shouted, her voice rising over the buzz of shocked clients. "You can't destroy a customer's property!" Eric snapped his fingers toward the clerk. "Call security. Now. Have her removed." The clerk reached for the phone, her voice dripping with triumph. "Security. Fraud alert at the front desk. Immediate assistance required." The lobby hummed louder, no longer polite but restless. A man in a gray suit muttered, "This is insane," another whispered to his companion. "She's calmer than anyone here. How is she the threat?" Maya finally bent down, picked up one half of the torn document, and laid it gently back on the counter. Her voice was measured, even. "You've crossed a line." Eric laughed. "The only line crossed is you walking in here thinking you belong." The phrase struck again like a weapon. "You don't belong." Daniel's voice cut sharp. "I've got it all on record. Every word." Eric wheeled on him. "Then you'll hand that phone over before security escorts you both out." But Daniel didn't lower his phone, and no one else lowered their eyes either. Dozens of gazes pinned Eric in place. The clerk, emboldened, stepped closer to Maya. "You can walk out now, quietly, or you can be dragged out. Your choice." Maya exhaled slowly, the faintest smile flickering. Her voice was calm, but it carried the weight of a verdict. "Choices are a mirror, and you've just shown the world yours." Gasps rippled, phones lifted higher. Someone whispered, This is going viral. The hum of heavy footsteps echoed near the entrance security, summoned and on the way. But Maya didn't move. She stood steady, hands folded once more. To the room, to the staff, to the guards about to arrive, her silence sent the same message. You think you've ended this, but you've only set the stage. The countdown had reached its sharpest tick yet. The sound of footsteps grew louder. 2 security guards in navy uniforms pushed through the glass doors, radios crackling at their hips. Their presence shifted the lobby's tension from whispers to sharp, shallow breaths. Eric straightened, confidence renewed. Perfect timing, remove her immediately. She's trespassing. The clerk gestured toward Maya with a satisfied smirk. That's the one. Fraud attempt. The guards stepped forward, but Maya raised a hand not to them, but to her own phone. She slid it calmly from her pocket, tapped the screen, and held it to her ear. Her voice was steady, even serene. Carla, she said, initiate Protocol 7. On the other end, the response came crisp, professional, immediate. Confirmed, Miss Jordan. Logging incident, activating compliance feed now. Eric barked a laugh. Who do you think you're fooling? Calling a friend won't save you. But Maya didn't look at him. She looked at the guards instead. In about 30 seconds, she said quietly, your radios will light up, and you'll know exactly who you've been asked to touch. The guards froze, uncertain. One shifted his weight, eyes flicking to the glowing phones raised throughout the lobby. Carla's voice carried through the speaker, calm and deliberate. Live feed is active. Corporate security and ethics board are patched in. Every word spoken for the last 10 minutes has been logged and time-stamped. The tablet girl's eyes widened. She whispered, she's serious. Daniel raised his voice, filming. You hear that? It's being recorded higher up. Eric's face darkened. Enough games. End the call and leave before you're arrested. Maya finally turned her gaze on him, steady and sharp. You've already arrested yourself with your words, with your actions, with every witness in this room. The clerk rolled her eyes, but the confidence had faltered. Corporate won't back a fraud. Maya's lips curved slightly, calm as ever. Corporate doesn't back liars either. Right then, a guard's radio crackled. Static, then a clear voice. Stand down. Compliance review in progress. Do not engage. Both guards froze. One of them muttered, what the? But stopped when he caught the look in Maya's eyes. Eric's smirk vanished. The certainty in his stance drained like water through broken glass. He demanded, who did you just call? Maya placed her phone flat on the counter. Carla's voice still came through, steady and undeniable. Protocol 7, fully activated. Employee conduct under live investigation. Temporary suspension initiated for branch manager Eric Dalton. Gasps rippled across the lobby. The clerk's face went pale. Eric's jaw clenched, his authority collapsing in real time. Maya folded her arms, unmoved. This isn't me playing games, she said softly. This is me keeping receipts. And for the first time since the confrontation began, the room realized. She wasn't defending herself. She was dismantling them. The countdown had shifted. Now it was no longer ticking toward her downfall. It was ticking toward theirs. The lobby was no longer just a room. It was a stage. Every phone raised was a spotlight. Every whisper a drum roll. Eric Dalton's face had lost its color. His nameplate still gleamed, but the authority behind it had crumbled. The clerk hovered by the desk phone, frozen mid-action, as if her next move might burn her fingers. The guards stayed rooted, radio silent now except for faint static. And Maya Jordan stood in the center, still as stone, her silence commanding more power than any outburst could. She reached for the torn document Eric had ripped earlier. With careful precision, she lifted it, aligning the halves as if to show the audience exactly what he had dismissed. Her voice came calm, even yet every syllable landed like iron. You've called me a fraud. You've denied me service. You've humiliated me in front of witnesses. Do you want to know the truth? Eric scoffed weakly, trying to salvage what little ground remained. The truth? You're nothing but a trespasser. Maya cut him off, her voice sharper now, slicing through the marble air. I am Maya Jordan, majority shareholder of this bank. This branch, this lobby, every contract you just jeopardized belongs to me. The silence that followed wasn't quiet. It was seismic. Phones shook in hands. Gasps collided. Someone whispered, "Oh my God." Another, louder. She owns the place? Daniel's phone captured every flicker of shock. He murmured to his lens, "This is the moment everything changes." The clerk's mouth fell open, her smugness evaporating into panic. That can't be true. But Carla's voice still hummed from the phone on the counter, calm and absolute. Confirmation. Miss Jordan holds controlling interest. 42% of executive shares. She is, in fact, your employer. A gasp swept the lobby like a wave. The young woman with the tablet grinned through tears. I knew it. I knew she wasn't bluffing. Eric's throat bobbed. His voice cracked, stripped of bravado. That's impossible. No one said. Maya stepped closer, her gaze never leaving his. Her words came slow, deliberate, leaving no air for denial. You didn't ask who I was. You assumed who I wasn't. That's the difference between ignorance and your downfall. The clerk stumbled back, knocking over a pen holder. The sharp clatter echoed like punctuation. Guests in the lobby began clapping first one, then another, until scattered applause rippled like thunder. Phones angled higher, voices whispered, "She's the owner. She's the owner." Eric turned, desperate, toward the guards. "Do something! Stop this!" But the guards shook their heads. One muttered quietly, "Not against her. Not anymore." Maya placed the torn document gently back on the counter, as if laying flowers on a grave. "This branch isn't yours to command. It's mine to judge." And in that moment, judgment was already unfolding. The countdown wasn't ticking anymore. It had struck 0. The applause didn't fade, it grew. What began as scattered claps spread into a wave rolling across the marble lobby. Every sound chipped away at the thin wall of authority Eric Dalton had tried to build. He stood rigid, face pale, lips trembling as if searching for words that no longer existed. His tie seemed too tight now, choking him with the weight of his own arrogance. The clerk's hands shook. Her smirk was gone, replaced with frantic darting eyes, as though she might find an escape route written in the air. She whispered, "She can't be serious, right?" But Carla's voice still hummed from the phone on the counter, steady, undeniable, corporate. There was no undoing it. The two guards shifted uneasily, suddenly smaller in their uniforms. One muttered to the other, "She outranks all of us. If we lay a hand on her now, it's career suicide." Clients in the lobby didn't hide anymore. Phones angled high, lenses gleaming. Some were live streaming. Others whispered excited commentary. "She's the owner," caught them red-handed. "I've never seen arrogance crumble so fast." Daniel moved closer, his voice clear for the camera. "You called her a fraud in a bank she owns. Everyone here saw it. Everyone heard it." Eric's jaw clenched, but the power had drained from his stance. His authority wasn't just cracked, it was shattered. The young woman with the tablet spoke again, louder now, her voice carrying through the lobby like a verdict. "You tried to erase her, twice, and now the whole world sees you for what you are." The clerk staggered back, chair screeching against the marble. She whispered, "I didn't mean..." But her excuses drowned beneath the chorus of recording phones. An older client with silver hair and a silk scarf shook her head, disgust written in every line of her face. "I've banked here for 20 years. Never again. Not after this." Another, a young father clutching his daughter's hand, added sharply, "If this is how you treat the owner, imagine how you treat the rest of us." The room was no longer silent. It was a courtroom, and the verdict was unanimous. Maya hadn't raised her voice once. She hadn't moved more than a few steps. Yet the entire branch staff, guards, clients was unraveling around her. Eric tried one last attempt at control, voice breaking. "Everyone calm down. This is a misunderstanding." But his words fell flat. No one believed him anymore. Authority had shifted. And every eye, every camera, every heartbeat in that lobby belonged to Maya Jordan. The collapse was complete. And she hadn't even issued the sentence yet. The lobby had already turned. What came next was no outburst, no spectacle, only consequence. Maya lifted her phone from the counter, tapped once, and raised it to her ear. Her voice was calm, steady, deliberate. "Carla, effective immediately terminate access for branch manager Eric Dalton and clerk on duty, Sandra Mills. Freeze credentials. Lock them out." The words were simple, but they landed like gavel strikes. On the other end, Carla's reply was crisp. "Confirmed. Processing now." A beat of silence passed, then the consequences arrived. Eric's badge, clipped proudly to his suit, buzzed faintly. A red light blinked, then went dark. The same happened to the clerk's lanyard, her access card beeping once before the screen above the desk flashed. Authorization revoked. Gasps swept the room. Phones zoomed closer. Someone whispered, "She actually did it." The clerk fumbled with her badge, pressing it to the reader again and again. Each time, the same denial. Access denied. Panic flickered across her face. This has to be a mistake. Eric's hands trembled. He slammed his badge against the panel, harder, desperate. The red denial tone echoed through the lobby, cold and merciless. His authority was gone, digitally erased, in front of everyone. Daniel's voice cut through the murmur. That's justice. Instant. Visible. The young woman with the tablet smiled, her camera catching every moment. She didn't yell. She didn't beg. She just ended them. The clerk's voice cracked. You can't do this. Maya turned her gaze on her, calm but unshakable. I already did. The guards exchanged glances. One of them muttered quietly, It's over. She's their boss. Clients in the lobby nodded, murmuring approval. A man in a dark suit said aloud, That's how power works. Quiet but final. Eric's last defense crumbled. He stammered, You can't. There has to be a review. Maya's words sliced through him. The review just happened. Everyone here was witness. She gestured toward the crowd, toward dozens of phones raised like jurors delivering a unanimous verdict. The room erupted in whispers, gasps, scattered applause. Maya placed her phone gently back on the counter, her voice low, controlled. You stripped me of dignity in a building I own. Now the building has stripped you of authority. The clerk backed away, face pale, eyes darting for an exit. Eric simply stood frozen, a man hollowed out by his own arrogance. The punishment was done. Swift, public, irreversible. And yet, Maya's expression carried no glee, no vengeance. Only the calm certainty of someone who knew this was never about revenge, it was about balance. The countdown had ended. Judgment had been delivered. The lobby, once tense and hostile, now pulsed with a different energy. Applause rose again, not chaotic, but steady, like a verdict sealed. Guests clapped. Some nodded firmly. Others whispered into their phones as their live streams captured history in real time. Eric Dalton stood motionless, badge lifeless on his chest. The clerk, Sandra, had slumped into her chair, pale and shaking, her voice gone. The guards lingered near the door, but they knew their role was over. Maya Jordan did not gloat. She didn't need to. Her presence alone was enough. She gathered the torn papers from the counter, slid them neatly into her folder, and tucked it under her arm. Then, with a calm, measured step, she turned to face the room. Her eyes swept the crowd, Daniel, the young woman with the tablet, the silver-haired client, the father holding his daughter's hand. Witnesses all. Their expressions carried relief, vindication, awe. Maya spoke, her tone low but resonant, every word carrying the weight of marble. You mistook silence for weakness. That was your last mistake. The room stilled. Even the hum of machines seemed to quiet under the gravity of her words. She continued, I don't need to raise my voice to prove who I am. My name, my work, my presence are louder than any insult you can throw. Daniel's camera caught the moment perfectly. He whispered, That's the line. That's the one. Maya turned back toward the counter, her gaze settling on the spot where Eric had stood so defiantly minutes earlier. You tried to erase me, but you can't erase what I've built. You can't erase the truth. Her voice softened, but the conviction only deepened. I am not the video you record. I am the result of every video like it. I don't need to be the clip. I am the conclusion. Gasps rippled again, then applause thundered. Clients stood. Some clapped with tears in their eyes. Others raised phones high, capturing not just a confrontation but a transformation. Eric lowered his head, defeated. Sandra buried her face in her hands. The guards stepped aside, silently granting Maya a clear path through the lobby. She didn't rush. She didn't bow. She simply walked forward, each step an assertion of dignity, of power earned and undeniable. At the glass doors, she paused once more, turning her head just slightly toward the stunned staff. Justice doesn't always shout, she said. Sometimes it just arrives, quiet, complete, irrefutable. And with that, Maya Jordan pushed open the doors and walked into the daylight. Behind her, the lobby buzzed with a new story, one no longer about humiliation, but about revelation. Phones streamed, clients whispered, and above it all, the truth stood clear. She hadn't just won, she had rewritten the rules.